The Me Too movement, as well as all these other feminist movements, are a bunch of crap. They're a bunch of BS. It's all about attention-seeking behavior. It's about wanting to belong to something, to feel important, and it's about power and control over other people. Women are unstable. That's just the truth of the matter. They're unstable. They're unpredictable. They have low self-esteem. They're insecure, paranoid, and that's why they do these things. Because that's how they feel about themselves. They keep screaming about rights, and yet they've had all their rights. They've had all their rights like anyone else, equal to men, for decades now. If there's a case of sexual harassment or sexual assault or whatever it is, all they have to do is report it, and it's taken care of. But instead, they have to keep making an issue out of something that is not even an issue. And they want to keep going on and on and on about the same thing, even though they have their rights. The truth is, women try to make men out to be the worst of the worst. But the truth is, women are just as dangerous and just as violent as any man. Women are pedophiles. They molest and rape kids. That's the truth. They assault men. They assault other women. It just gets covered up. It gets hidden and covered up so you don't hear about it as often. But there's many, many women, lots of women in prison for sexual assault. Women kill children. They've been doing this for a long time. They kill their own children all the time. They're in prison for it. They kill babies by abortion. Look at all the babies, unborn children that are killed by abortion. Yet women claim to care about children. They claim to want to protect children, but look at what they're doing. But yet they blame men for doing all the same things. Yet they want to make themselves out to be special, better than men. I don't think so. That's not what the truth says. Let's look at all the false accusations that have happened through hundreds of years now. How many men have been falsely accused of rape? How many men have spent years in prison, 20, 30 years, sometimes their life? How many men have even died in prison only to find out that they were innocent through DNA testing? Accused of rape and died in prison only to find out now that they were not even guilty. They were innocent of all charges. This is what women do. Thank God for DNA. And this is happening more and more. We see this all the time. It's in the news. Feminist movements have also been behind all this so-called sex offender stuff, all this decades of a witch hunt against so-called sex offenders for decades now. And they have ruined multitudes of innocent families and children through this crazy, irrational witch hunt against people with sex offenses. They don't even realize how what they're doing, how all these dangerous movements that they create affect everyone and affect our own children. in so many negative ways. How many of our young teenagers, and there's been many, have killed themselves, have committed suicide? 12, 14, 16-year-old children over the threat and the fear of the sex offender stigma that's been out there for years in the media. You can't escape it. Women's feminist movements are behind this. Children jumping off of buildings because of some innocent act. And now they're threatened with becoming sex offenders for the rest of their life. So they kill themselves over this. This is women. Women's feminist movements have created this chaos in our country. And yet they say they care. They care about children? I don't see it. I don't see it. Women are giving our young boys and girls such a negative outlook on relationships, on intimacy, on sex, all this stuff through these acts that they're doing, through this Me Too movement and all. They're creating such a bad negative image for our children and giving all these negative opinions towards all these things that should be normal. Intimacy and relationships. They're giving it all a bad name, and our children are growing up with a very negative attitude towards these things. They grow up with a fears of relationships, fears of sex, all this problem. And then we have problems, and women wonder why. We wonder why, because women and these feminist movements are behind all this chaos. Now let's look at some of the facts. In the last few decades, what do we see? Well, they tell us we have a major decline in our country in marriages and births. Yet, a major increase in divorce, in abortions, in sexual deviance, including acts with minors, sexual violence, homosexuality, etc. Many men are simply afraid of women's irrational and insane behavior now. And men are avoiding relationships with women because of the insane and irrational attitudes and crazy ways that they're acting. Every time they turn around, they're afraid of an accusation. They're afraid of a false accusation. They're afraid of all these things. So those are the facts. And women's feminist movements are doing this to us. So now men are avoiding relationships, and they turn to other things. They turn to all these other outlets as a replacement. So we see a major increase in all these things and a decline in what should be normal in our country. So ask yourself the question, are women dangerous? Are they dangerous to men? I would say yes. What is your opinion? Can women be trusted? It's your opinion. My mind, I would say no. Women cannot be trusted. Look at all the damage that they've done. All these feminist movements are destroying our country. They're destroying our world. They're destroying our children. And they're breaking down our nation's most valuable and important strongholds and foundations. And we see this in the last few decades. We see this today. Some of these strongholds are the most normal things we should have, which is love and marriage, our families, and our children. It's all being torn apart because of these fears, these feminist movements are creating for all of us. Well, it needs to stop before it's too late. That's all I can say. It's your opinion. Look at the facts. May God bless us all. Thank you.